Hey family, welcome to Story Time with an Alpha. My name is Keith Henley. I am your host, and Alpha's are in the house. Oh, sex. How you guys doing? Oh man, I missed y'all. I really missed you guys. How you been? All is well? All is well here. Well, are you excited to read a new book this week? I'm excited, absolutely excited. But before we get into that, I just want to share a couple things with you guys. Now, let me tell y'all something. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, like attending an HBCU college or university. You got to try it. See, you go to HBCU and look what you get. You become Alpha. I'll get into that a little later on because I don't want to overcrowd y'all with some good stuff. But the Alphas first, the originators, the beginning. Oh, yes. But HBCUs, all kidding aside, HBCUs are responsible for developing some of the most innovative, creative, imaginative, most brilliant minds that the world has ever seen. And they have all come from HBCU, college and universities. We are an amazing people. Yes, we are amazing. And there's absolutely nothing that we have not conquered or mastered or invented that the world is not basking in. They're dealing like, wow, what these people have done. And that's because of stories like Henry Box Brown and William Still and Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman and others, W.E.B. Du Bois, and there is Booker T. Washington and Dr. George Washington Carver and Patricia Bath. Oh man, we can go on and on and on and on. But the thing is, it's all about reading. Reading is fundamental. And just like Frederick Douglass' book said, words set him free. If words set him free, can you imagine what words would do for you? Yes. But let's get into today's book. Today's book is entitled Henry's Freedom Box. It is a true story from the Underground Railroad. And I did mention it's in William Still's real thick book that he wrote called The Underground Railroad. His story is in there. But this one is by Ellen Levine and Kadar Nelson and family. You got this book. This is the children's version. Mom and Dad, you need his version. You need the true account of Henry Box Brown. This is a must-have in your library. Okay, you got to have this book in your library. And the reason why I say that, not only because it's a true story, but it's a remarkable story. There are not too many books that I know of, and I'm not saying that I know a lot, but I know I can say that in my research that I don't ever remember too many books about house slaves that are written, about a particular slave who survived or what it was like to be a house slave. We have heard many stories about field slaves. We've heard stories like, you've got Harriet Tubman, you got Frederick Douglass, and the stories go on. And there's just so many of them out there, but not too many about the house slaves. And Henry's account is absolutely an amazing tale. It is amazing. So, Mom and Dad, y'all need to get this. All right, so let's get started. Henry Box Brown was one of the Underground Railroad's most famous runaway slaves. He had the most ingenious idea. I wonder what it was. Can you guess? How about if we check and see? I can't wait to share. Henry Brown wasn't sure how old he was. Henry was a slave, and slaves weren't allowed to know their birthdays. Henry and his brothers and sisters worked in the big house where the master lived. Henry's master had been good to Henry and his family, but Henry's mother knew things could change. Do you see those leaves blowing in the wind? They are torn from the trees like slave children are torn from their families. One morning, the master called for Henry and his mother. They climbed the wide staircase. The master lay in bed with only his head above the quilt. He was very ill. He beckoned them to come closer. Some slaves were freed by their owners. Henry's heart beat very fast. Maybe the master would set him free. But the master said, "You are a good worker, Henry. I am giving you to my son. You must obey him and never tell a lie." Henry nodded, but didn't say thank you. That would have told a lie. Later that day, Henry watched a bird soar high above the trees. Free bird, happy bird, Henry thought. Henry said goodbye to his family. He looked across the field. The leaves swirled in the wind. Henry worked in his new master's factory. He was good at his job. "Do not tear that tobacco leaf," the boss yelled at the new boy. He poked the boy with the stick. If you made a mistake, the boss would beat you. Henry was lonely. One day, he met Nancy, who was shopping for her mistress. They walked and talked and agreed to meet again. Henry felt like singing, but slaves didn't dare sing in the streets. Instead, he hummed all the way home. Months later, Henry asked Nancy to be his wife. When both their masters agreed, Henry and Nancy were married. Soon there was a little baby, then another, and another. Henry knew they were very lucky. They lived together even though they had different masters. But Nancy was worried. Her master had lost a great deal of money. "I'm afraid he will sell our children," she said. Henry sat very still. Henry worked hard all morning. He tried to forget what Nancy had said. His friend James came into the factory. He whispered to Henry, "Your wife and children were just sold at the slave market." "No!" cried Henry. Henry couldn't move. He couldn't think. He couldn't work. "Twist that tobacco," the boss poked Henry. Henry twisted tobacco leaves. His heart twisted in his chest. At lunchtime, Henry rushed to the center of town. A large group of slaves was tied together. The owner shouted at them. Henry looked for his family. "Father! Father!" Henry watched his children disappear down the road. Where was Nancy? He saw her the same moment she saw him. When he wiped away his tears, Nancy, too, was gone. Henry no longer sang. He couldn't hum. He went to work, and at night he ate supper and went to bed. Henry tried to think of happy times, but all he could see were the carts carrying away everyone he loved. Henry knew he would never see his family again. Many weeks had passed. One morning, Henry heard singing. A little bird flew out of a tree into the open sky, and Henry thought about being free. But how? As he lifted a crate, he knew the answer. He asked James and Dr. Smith to help him. Dr. Smith was a white man who thought slavery was wrong. They met early the next day at an empty warehouse. Henry arrived with a box. I will mail myself to a place where there are no slaves, he said. James stared at the box, then at Henry. What if you cough and someone hears you? I will cover my mouth and hope, Henry said. Dr. Smith wrote on the box, to William H. Johnson, Arch Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Henry would be delivered to friends in Philadelphia. Then he printed on the crate in big letters, this side up with care. Henry needed an excuse to stay home, or the work boss would think that he had run off. James pointed to Henry's sore finger, but Henry knew it wasn't bad enough. He opened the bottle of oil of vitriol. No, cried James. Henry poured it on his hand. It burned his skin to the bone. Now the boss would have to let him stay home. Dr. Smith bandaged Henry's hand. They arranged to meet the next morning at 4:00. The sun was not yet up when Henry climbed into the box. Ready, he said. James nailed down the lid. Dr. Smith and James drove to the station. The railway clerk tipped the box over and nailed a paper to the bottom. Dr. Smith begged the clerks to be careful, but they didn't listen. They threw the box into the baggage car. Hours passed. Henry was lifted up and thrown again. Upside down, he heard waves splashing. This must be the steamboat headed for Washington, D.C. The ship rode smoothly, but Henry was still upside down. Blood rushed to his head. His face got hot. His eyes ached. He thought his head would burst, but he was afraid to move. Someone might hear him. I'm tired of standing, someone said. Why don't we move that box and sit on it, said another. Henry held his breath. Could they be talking about his box? Henry was pushed. Then the box scraped the deck. Now he was on his right side. Now on his left. And suddenly, right side up. "What do you think is in here?" said the first man. Mail, I guess," said the other. "I am mail," thought Henry, but not the kind they imagined. Henry was carried off the steamboat and placed on a railroad car, this time head up. He fell asleep to the rattling song of the train wheels. He awoke to loud knocking. "Henry, are you all right in there?" "All right," he answered. The cover was pried open. Henry stretched and stood up. Four men smiled at him. "Welcome to Philadelphia." At last, Henry had a birthday, March 30th, 1849. His first day of freedom, and from that day on, he also had a middle name. Everyone called him Henry Box Brown. Well, did you like it? Absolutely fascinating book. It's a good children's version. This is a good book. It's a very, very interesting story. Glad I had an opportunity to share it with you. But mom and dad, you want to get this one, all right? You really want to get this one because this book will fill in a lot of the stuff that the young lady could not get in here. And I guarantee you, trust me, you will not be disappointed. You will not be disappointed. Well, family, I'm done for today. I will share with you. I can't wait to share next week's book. Ooh, wait till y'all see what I got planned for y'all. Oh, yes. We are going down. We're going to have ourselves a party. Yes, we are going to have ourselves a party. Not like we don't have a party every week. Yes, indeed. Well, until the next time, this is Keith Henley, your host with Story Time with an Alpha. 06 in the house. Yes, indeed. Until the next time, family, y'all be blessed. Have a great week. And remember, words will set you free. Yes, indeed. Words will set you free. Please keep on reading. Until then, may God continue to bless you all. Love you. Bye.